Alright everyone, John Boehner came out a couple days ago, and I was going to talk about it at the time, but I got flooded out with between the spacey stuff and everything else that was happening. There was no time to allocate for it. Less happened like in the last 24 hours, I guess, so it's time to talk about it. Boehner comes out, gives an interview, and he talks about like Jason Chaffetz, and he's talking about others like Gowdy he mentions, and some Alaskan lawmaker too who apparently held a knife to his throat, and he's like, yeah, there's some Republicans that I friggin' hate, and he's sitting there swearing like a drunken sailor during the interview, which is funny. But apparently he thinks Chaffetz is basically misleading everyone, that he's basically a phony. Which, I don't know, because, you know, I've never met the dude. I have looked at some of his behavior. On that one, maybe Boehner's actually right. Gowdy, though, I never found him, based on what he says and in tones. He seems like he actually believes what he says, which is more than you can say for a lot of people in the legislature. On that one, I think I think it's just sour grapes, maybe, because Gowdy has upstaged him. But the most funny story was with the Alaskan lawmaker. Apparently it was over some sort of discretionary spending to their respective home states. And the dude at a party took out a big-ass knife and, like, pinned him up against the wall. And Boehner responded just by saying, fuck you, basically, to the dude who was threatening him. And then the dude came out. And when reached for comment, he's like, oh yeah, that's mostly true. So it actually happened. This dude actually, like, threatened his life and got a fuck you in return. That's to Boehner's credit, I think. And I say that as someone who really didn't like Boehner. Like, what did he do for years? He just did nothing. Part of that was because the Tea Party didn't want to work with him, but part of it was also he didn't want to work with the Tea Party. So you had successive waves of strangulation. Then, of course, for a long time there, the Democrats controlled the Senate. So there's really nothing that the House Republicans under Boehner could actually do. They didn't really have much power. They weren't really capable of passing any meaningful legislation. One of the reasons why for 6 years Obama did basically nothing. Of course, they never attempted to actually stop the ACA. That was a bit of a problem. But yeah, it was dumb. The Boehner era is best remembered as John Boehner gets drunk repeatedly and pretends that he actually has something to do. Like, I don't even know why he bothered to show up after a while. After a while, it must have been just torment for him. And he's like, he broke down into tears multiple times. And the funny thing is, the government keeps getting worse and worse to the point at which people have nostalgia, some of them, for a Boehner Congress. That's pretty damn bad. There are also plenty of people who say that piss-poor Obama and or even more piss-poor W are better than Trump. Now, I disagree on that end. On the executive end, I think we've seen an improvement. On the legislative end, I'm semi-receptive to the concept that the current leaders, like Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan's nuts. Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell's the worst of all. If you got rid of McConnell and got someone sane in there running things, you might see some more progress in this country. Paul Ryan seems more willing to work with his own administration. Mitch McConnell is basically the John Boehner to the Trump if Trump were a Democrat. It's very, very funny to watch this happen where McConnell won't even give him the time of day. And now they sort of pretend to be frenemies or something. And it's just bullshit. Like, you know, they actually don't professionally or personally like one another. They just have to force themselves to work occasionally for the cameras so that people don't think there's something terribly, dreadfully wrong going on with the Republicans in the Senate, I think. But Boehner's stories were funny. It's funny to hear John Boehner swear. It's even more funny to hear him recount almost, I guess, getting his throat slit. Now, usually, if someone's holding a knife up to your throat, usually they don't actually intend, unless something horrible happens, to utilize it in an offensive capacity. They're trying to threaten and scare you, basically. But still, I mean, it must have been strange to be at a party for this lawmaker in Alaska, and it's like, welcome to Alaska, basically. I'm sure it was a rude awakening for him. I bet he didn't go back for the after party, no matter how much alcohol was being offered. That's about all. Peace out.